Atesh Dile, and welcome to In Conversation with Tibet TV. This is Sakina Bhatt. For today's episode, I have a reputed personality who is the first ever Tibetan to be elected at the helm of US Commission of International Religious Freedom. He is also the Associate Professor at the California State University, Fullerton. He is Dr. Tenzing Dorjila. Dr. Tenzing Dorjila, it's an honor to have you here. Welcome to our show.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me here.
So, Dr. Tenzing Dorjila, being the first ever elected Tibetan at the helm of the US Commission of International Religious Freedom, you were given the special responsibility concerning the sad state of religious freedom in Tibet. So, tell us, how is this done, and how is the progress going on, if there is any?
Sure. In 1998, International Religious Freedom Act was passed by the United States Congress, and under it, they established the Office of International Relations under State Department and the United States Commission on International Religious Freedom, on which I serve. And so we are a bipartisan and independent body, and our main mandate is to monitor religious freedom across the world. And when there are religious violations, it's our responsibility to call upon them. And so one of the most important jobs we do is to bring out an annual report. So that contains policy recommendations to the President, Secretary of State, and the Congress, to persuade the respective governments, to respect religious freedom. And if not, so there are tools in the U.S. government's boxes that they should use to uphold religious freedom. And I was, of course, nominated by the most honorable Nancy Pelosi, and it was a big surprise for me because I didn't expect that to happen. And so I served my first term, which is 2 years, and then she renominated me, and the House of Representatives again, reappointed me, and then I was unanimously elected as the chair of the commission. I served for 1 year, and I just kind of finished my chairship term, and now I'm still a commissioner on the board. So it is a huge honor, privilege, and responsibility because we feel that religious freedom is the most fundamental basic freedom, according to the Article 18 of the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights. And if you don't have that foundation, human rights, then all other rights such as freedom of speech, freedom of thought, conscience, everything would fall apart.
So you just mentioned that annually you send a report to the US government concerning the religious freedom rights around the world. So concerning Tibet, what kind of response are you getting from them? We have been reporting on China for many, many years, even before I got on to the commission. And so with regard to China, both the State Department and USERF, we both agree that China is not only among the most, egregious violators of religious freedom. From my perspective, and many of my fellow commissioners share, China epitomizes what we call the country of particular concern, the worst rating we have. And so we have been asking the US government that they should use tools such as Global Magnitsky Accountability Act, so that those who are most responsible for repressions of religious freedom in Tibet, and also in all over China, so we should sanction them. We should, so that they will not be able to come to the United States, and there are many other tools we have. So we encourage the government to use the tools so that we'll bring real change. Okay. So all the Tibetans around the world were so proud of you when you were elected for this important post, especially the young Tibetans like me. We were so inspired. Like people of every nationality, we realized that even Tibetans, they are equally capable of making a remarkable impact on the global stage. So how did you feel at that time, and how do you actually carry out your duties?
You're right. So when I got nominated on the commission, and especially when I become the chair, unanimously elected, I think many Tibetans inside and outside Tibet were really delighted. And for me personally, it was a great honor. I never expected it. But it's not so much about me, Tenzing Dorjila per se, but it's all about a Tibetan, who's got on such a prestigious commission and a global platform and kind of global leadership, right, to promote religious freedom around the world.
So that's a tremendous honor and privilege responsibility. And in the beginning, I had a little bit of, I should say, because I didn't have that experience, and especially I grew up as a Tibetan refugee pretty much in India, and we have a kind of refugee mindset, right? We are the victims of all the repressions you can ever think of. So we asked internationally for all kinds of help and support. And now I have become a commissioner because I'm a Tibetan American, and I traveled to Myanmar or Burma and Iraq, and so I was a representative of the United States, right? And I meet with the leaders of these countries at different high levels, and so I have to change my mindset. I cannot function with the Tibetan refugee mindset because now for me it was just unthinkable.
But, being a Tibetan refugee, don't you think so that you have more experience because you actually know what is happening in Tibet and you are always aware of what is happening in Tibet? So,
yes, in that respect, you're right. I mean, I have the kind of experiences, what it means to lose your country and to go through the most egregious religious freedom issues. So that way, I have a lot of, lived experiences. But now I'm put on such a global leadership scale, which I never had that experience in, right? And so it was like, not only that I represent the most, superpower nation on the earth, and speaking on behalf of the United States government, and that's kind of really hard in the beginning. Then, of course, I have to communicate to myself. Now I'm on this stage, and I have a different kind of leadership, and I have to represent that. And so that was a great honor. And now I have been serving almost 4 years, and so I've gained some experiences. But initially, it was a little bit, perplexing how to manage that kind of responsibility in global leadership.
So now you're comfortable with everything?
Now, yes, I'm much more comfortable, I should say.
And this year, you were even conferred the Three-Will Recognition Award for your contribution in the promotion and preservation of Tibetan language, religion, and culture. So in this current period of Tibet's history, why do you think so that Tibetan language, religion, and culture is so important? And particularly, why do you think that it is vital for Tibetan youths to preserve the Tibetan identity?
Well, we can look at it from multiple perspectives, and there could be 100 different reasons why it matters, important. But I'm also kind of expert in the intergroup and intercultural communication studies, and I've done a lot of research studies on identity issues and culture and communication. And from those perspectives, identity is the kind of very valuable and closest thing that anybody has it. And especially those of us, who have lost our country, and we are in exile or diaspora, and so we are struggling, right, for our own just cause. And so in that regard, everything that is Tibetan matters. Your language, your culture, your belief system, your values, everything else you can imagine. And especially the Tibetan language is not just kind of a language for everyday use, but it is a very sophisticated language. And we are very proud that, as His Holiness the Dalai Lama always tells us, that the Nalanda tradition of Buddhism, which passed down through the 16 great Nalanda professors, we have preserved it for centuries. And today in the world, of course, there are Buddhist nations, and Buddhism is available in other languages. Perhaps, the complete, Buddhist literature, whatever that exists today, is only available in our language, Tibetan. Well, so therefore, it's not only about Tibet. I think today in the world, people recognize that Tibetan culture is the world's heritage culture. It's the culture of peace and non-violence, which really we need it in the world where there's a lot of conflicts going on. And Tibetan language has so much resources, that helps us to be able to change our perspective and state of mind, become more positive. Because most of our modern education is based upon material goals and developments. So we all have body, speech, and mind. So we need education for the brain, or but we also need education for the heart, and that's what Tibetans can bring in. So we can play a very important role in this matter.
You have acquired various eminent roles in your life very successfully, and you are also a published author and translator of Tibetan Buddhism into English, and you are also the translator of His Holiness the Dalai Lama when His Holiness gives talks in US and India. So how do you manage to acquire all these roles and carry them out very successfully?
Well, what I can say, when I look back, of course, I never expected, that one day I will, have opportunity to translate for His Holiness Dalai Lama, or one day I will become a professor, or one day I'll become a commissioner and chair, right? And those are not part of my dreams, I thought about one day I'll become a professor. But having said that, now I have become all of this and probably many more. And so it's one of those things where, you go through the experiences and you learn how to manage, multitask so many things. Isn't
So
it?
all this, it just came to you, or you had to go?
Well, it pretty much came to me. I never thought of becoming a translator, but then my one of the most important teachers, again, Losang Gyaltso, the founder of the Institute of Buddhist Dialectics and the Sara College, he said, well, there's the most need for that, so why don't you go there? And so I just completely believed in him, and that's how, I translated at the Tibetan Library for over 13 years. And I've still been translating voluntarily for a Tibetan Buddhist center, Kandin Shazi Thubten Dajaling in Long Beach, California, for over 20 years voluntarily. So I continue with that every Sunday. And now I'm a professor with a full-time job. That's my paid job. I have to do a lot of research, community service, and have to do publications. So on top of that, I'm a commissioner, which is volunteer service. It's like a full-time job. I travel like crazy to Washington, D.C. So I will go there and return midnight, a flight, because next morning I have to teach classes. And so with the blessing of His Holiness and all my teachers and protectors, everybody else, I think so far my health has, pretty much doing well. And so I think, as you get all these opportunities, we have to seize them, and we do our best, right, to manage all those things. So through experiences, you learn how to do it better.
Okay, so finally, Dr. Tenzin Dorjila, you have any message for the Tibetan youth in terms of becoming a successful individual while at the same time making an mark in the global stage as a Tibetan?
Sure. I think before I came here, I was invited to be a part of panel education, at the West Coast Tibetan picnic of the His Holiness Dalai Lama's birthday in Oregon, Portland. And so I realized that now today, we have many young Tibetan boys and girls, who are very intelligent, and many of them are really, pursuing their dreams and goals, and we are doing quite well in many ways in modern education. Now, what's lacking, especially in the West, is our traditional Tibetan education. Yeah. So, which means we are lacking the education for the heart, the compassion, and the kindness. And we need to combine both those things, right, to be able to do. Because if we only get the modern education and become like any other successful people, I don't think that will necessarily make us happy or make better contributions, because everybody else is doing that. So what we can bring as a unique is we have the Tibetan education. So that's what Tibetans are saying. The young people, all of us should be like a bird with two powerful wings to fly. But what I realize is we have cultivating a very powerful one side of the wing, modern education, but the other wing is kind of weak on the other side. So you can't fly it, isn't it? So my only request and appeal to the young Tibetans, including you, is to please kind of pay more attention to our rich language, tradition, and studies, so that you will become very unique. I'm a professor. That makes me fit better well in the Western education system. But what makes me so unique, and maybe if there's such thing as unique contribution, is because of the Tibetan upbringing and education. So we have to combine both head and heart education. So that's my appeal to everybody.
Thank you so much, Dr. Tenzin Dorjila. It was lovely doing this conversation with you. Thank you for coming to our show.
It has been a pleasure. Thank you very much for having me here. Thank you.
Thank you so much for watching, and see you in the next episode of In Conversation with Tibet TV.